today's show, we're going to be talking to Jennifer Ann Gordon. She is a gothic horror speculative fiction novelist. Her work includes beautiful, frightening, and silent, and it's won the Kindle Award for Best Horror and Suspense of 2020. It's also won the Best Horror 2020 Award for Authors on the Air. So do stay with us, and when we come back, we're going to be having more on Jennifer Ann Gordon. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. I'm your host, Brijetti Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa. Today's stream is made possible by StreamYard, Creative Edge, and BeLive Media, helping you to spotlight the humans behind your brand and also to elevate your online profile with ease. If you want to know when we go live, please go ahead and like our Facebook page so that you get the notification when we go live. Also on YouTube, please click the subscribe button and also the notification bell so you know when we're live on YouTube as well. So whether you're watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, LinkedIn, welcome to the show and great to have you here. In today's show, we're going to be talking to Jennifer Ann Gordon about her books that include Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent, which won the Kindle Award for Best Horror and Suspense 2020. But first of all, let me say a warm welcome to my amazing guest and co-host, Mary Elizabeth Jackson. Mary is a special needs and disabilities advocate and an award-winning author of the Poolicious children's book series, and she lives in Nashville in the USA. So without any further ado, let me welcome my amazing co-host, Mary, to the show.
Good morning.
Mary, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, and you?
Good. I'm looking forward to the show today, and I'm excited to be here. And I'm so excited. We want to say hi to our friends who are watching from all around the world, because we have friends everywhere who watch, and we're excited they're joining us or watching on the replay. And we're excited about our author this morning. She's a very busy lady. And so if you're a big horror fan, definitely need to be watching today. And if you don't know who she is, you will now, and you can become her next fan.
Absolutely. So a little bit more about Jennifer before we bring her onto the show. Jennifer Gordon's Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent 2020 won the Kindle Award for Best Horror Suspense for 2020. It also won Best Horror 2020 from Authors on the Air. And then her second novel, From Daylight to Madness, received the Golden Seal from Book Review. And her third novel, When the Sleeping Dead Still Talk, was published late in November 2020. And she tells us that in addition to her fiction work, she also had a collection of a mixed media artwork published during spring of this year entitled Victoriana. She's been a busy lady, hasn't she?
Yes.
Yes. And so she's also fulfilled a childhood dream of hers of becoming a member of the Horror Writers Association. And so I think with any further ado, let's welcome Jennifer to the show, shall we?
Absolutely.
Jennifer, welcome to the show. So great to have you with us.
Thank you both for having me. This has been it was such a fancy dramatic introduction with the credits rolling. I felt like I was in a parade.
or I was going to say the film debut of your new book, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Well, we want to say congratulations, first of all, on your awards. They're very, well, it just kind of makes you go, okay, doing the right thing. And all my hard work is paying off, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was a little shocking and very fulfilling. I was, I entered the Kindle Awards so many months ago that I honestly completely forgot I had entered them until I found out I was a semifinalist back in September. And I
Wow.
thought just being a semifinalist was amazing. I was so excited just to be in the top 20 for my category. And then a month later, I made it to the top 5. And then I thought the same thing, like, it's just an honor to be nominated. I can't believe I'm in the top 5. And the day I found out I won the Kindle Award was actually the day after I got married. So it was a really wonderful highlight of 2020 after kind of a rough year.
Wow.
That
Oh my
is
goodness. Well, you've been very
amazing.
busy, very, very busy.
I have been
Yeah.
very busy. I think I've been especially busy because with the lockdown, with COVID and everything, I lost my job because I was a professional ballroom dancer. So, and I was
Mhm.
writing on the side. So since kind of COVID and the lockdown since March, this has been what I've put all of my energy into. So,
I suppose in some ways it's
Well,
had
it
its
worked because you,
absolutely, because you were able to kind of now focus down on something very, very specific, and something that you enjoyed, and it obviously has paid off quite handsomely.
yes. I mean, I very much enjoyed my career as a ballroom dancer too, and I hope someday that the world will allow social dancing safely again. But I do think, being in lockdown, having a very kind of internal focus has helped, especially with the style of writing I do. I do gothic horror, so it's a lot of introspective, slow, claustrophobic dread. So I think that kind of has been fueled by what's happening in the world and not being able to leave the house very often.
What do you miss most
it makes
about
for some very
lockdown?
good.
So what I miss most, I would say I miss dancing and my students because I was a ballroom dance teacher for the past 12 years, 6 years at the studio that just recently closed down. And we were very social. We were very active. We went on trips with our students. We went to Bermuda. We went to Canada. Um, so I miss that part of my life, and I very, very, very much miss traveling. That is a passion of mine besides writing. Is traveling, and I this is the first time in many years that I haven't had a trip planned to look forward to. So I would say traveling and
Does your
dancing.
does your husband dance as well?
Yes, he is my dance partner. That is how we met.
Oh, fun. Okay. I used to teach
Yeah.
ballroom, so I
Did
love
you
ballroom
really?
dancing, and I did. I've been a dancer since I was 3. So my first job was at Disney World, and because I'm from
Oh
Orlando,
my
so
gosh. Were
yes.
you a
So
princess?
I can. Hmm. I wish my girls are princesses. My daughter has a business where they dress up. So we have Belle and Cinderella hanging in the room here I'm at. So, but yes, it's so much fun, and I know you miss it. And I will tell you from my own experience, I can, when you are a dancer and so much of your life, because I did professional can for 6 years. I was dancing day, teaching, dancing at night, and then you stop and your body goes, oh my gosh,
What?
what
Yeah.
happened? And the body does not acclimate very well to it.
No, my body is not acclimated very well to it. What's funny is, like you said, you dance all day. I also performed a lot. I did burlesque. My husband and I performed all over New
Oh, I
England,
love
all over the
that.
country. And so my body was always moving. And in addition to that, I was also training to be a Zumba instructor. I did Zumba several times a week. So all of a sudden, March 14th hit, and I went from being incredibly active, like 12 hours a day, to now I only work out about an hour and a half a day. And I spend a lot of time writing. And I never realized how hard just being still would be on my body and typing for so many hours. Like my body hurts more now than it did after dancing for 12 hours.
So do you find that you are able to sort of,
I can see that.
channel that energy into your writing? Because we all need lockdown's been hard for us, COVID's been hard for us, and we somehow need a way to channel all that negative energy that it's brought into our lives. Have you been able to sort of channel that into, or pour that into your writing, more or less?
I think I have. I mean, I know I definitely have, especially my books, From Daylight to Madness and When the Sleeping Dead Still Talk, because When the Sleeping Dead Still Talk, that portion of the story was written during lockdown. So there was a lot more claustrophobia, I think, happening in my character's internal emotions in that book that maybe would have happened beforehand. I'm not sure. When I write, I don't really plot things out. I'm a total pantser. So what's happening in the world and what's happening in my life always affects me. It affects my characters. It all goes in.
That is awesome. Do you think well, let me ask you this. Have you always wanted to be a horror writer, like your whole life? Were you obsessed with books like that as a child and all the movies? Or is
Yes.
it something you just kind of gradually got into as you got older? Okay.
So horror has always been my go-to genre for TV, movie, books especially. But I read other genres too. I love literary fiction. I love mystery. I love, psychological thrillers. And I always knew I wanted to write. And I didn't necessarily go into it thinking I'm going to be a horror writer. But the first book I wrote, Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent, was gothic horror. The second two books I've wrote were also gothic horror. Those were Victorian based. And the thing I'm working on right now, I thought was going to be quite a departure for me, but it's still ending up being a horror novel. I was like, this one's fun. It has a romance in it. But now I realized it's like The Stand with a rom-com thrown in. So it's still a horror novel. There just happens to be a little bit more lightheartedness to it.
So where do you draw your inspiration from? From sort of like, I know you mentioned just before earlier that, you tend to get influenced by your surroundings and what's happening in life around you. Is that what you generally do? Do you draw on real life characters? Is it some of your own life that's sort of intermingled, some of your friends in there, or is it a mixture?
It's a mixture of everything. The idea for Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent came about, honestly, 20 years ago when I was having a conversation with somebody who was just an acquaintance at the time. And he had said the words, "My uncle was a cop in the 50s and his partner murdered his wife and the entire police force covered it up." And just hearing that made me say,
Wow.
I wonder what would happen if that man who covered up his wife's murder, I wonder what would happen if she haunted him, like, for the rest of his life. And that is where the core of Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent came from. I thought I was going to write this story about, and I did, about a woman who haunts her murderer for her entire life. But the book became so much more. Those two characters, the ghost and the murderer, Anthony, became the side characters in a different story about who I thought was going to be a throwaway character. His name was Adam. And it ended up being his story, dealing with survivor's guilt and the loss of his child and the loss of his wife. It ended up being his story. And he was just kind of like the match that got set into this other instance with the ghost and the murderer. He was just the fuse that made all of their lives kind of explode with grief and regret and rage. So that book came about just because somebody said something in a passing conversation. part of From Daylight to Madness came about because I had a dream of a girl shooting somebody and then being sent away. And I remember waking up from it going, oh, I should write about her. And again, she just became a side character in the book. But I think inspiration could come from anywhere. Yesterday, I was looking up some strange psychological and psychiatric things that happened in the early part of the 20th century, because I'm in a book club and we're reading something about schizophrenia. So I was just doing some research, and immediately I got like this incredible idea, or maybe it's not an incredible idea, but I got an idea for, a story just based on kind of a headline of a newspaper article.
And that's amazing where all this inspiration comes from. It's kind of like it drops out of the air sometimes, and it's fascinating, isn't it, when you start with something, then it takes a whole life on its own. Like it has its own it just births itself. It's fascinating, isn't it?
I know. So I find myself, and I find myself screaming at my computer when I'm typing my characters, and because they're not doing what I wanted them to do. Even though I'm creating them, I'm yelling at them, screaming, "You're making the wrong choice." And I can hear my husband laughing in the other room, and he just says, you're the one writing it, right? They didn't have to make that choice. I'm like, they did. I can't control them.
That is hilarious. You must have so much fun writing.
I do, because the funniest thing I think I do when I write is I went to school for theater, so I love to like talk out loud when I'm writing. So I do say the words that I'm writing, and sometimes I do accents and sometimes I don't. So there's, at any given moment, if my husband walks in, there's a good chance I'll be crying and doing a Northern Irish accent while typing on the computer.
Your
that
cover
is very
for
funny.
It is your cover for Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent. Who did that? I think it's an amazing cover.
Oh, that's me, and my husband took the photo.
Oh,
Wow.
okay, very good, very
Yeah,
cool.
and
That's cool.
I never intended that to be the cover, but we had done a photo shoot a few years ago because we were performing in a haunted attraction, and so I was the lady in white, the ghost in the cemetery. And we had taken all these great photos. And when I first started writing and first started openly talking about the book, when I realized it was becoming a thing, I just used that picture as a teaser image. And then the more I used it, the more I realized it was perfect. So I photoshopped my tattoos off and cut my head off, and it's me.
That is fascinating. How, creativity is so, one of the things that I think is so super cool about creativity is there's just no boundaries. It's a place that we can just go and have to stop and not be told what to do, told we can't do it, and not be told that's wrong. It's amazing, isn't it? It's absolutely amazing. And we are all creative beings, who need an outlet. So, whether yours is designing buildings, or in the garden, or you're a chef, or you're on the computer create graphics and videos, and there's just so many different ways to be creative, and our soul has to have that. It needs it. And writing is extremely therapeutic too. On the other hand, that's another wonderful thing about writing, is whether you ever publish or not, it's extremely therapeutic. And even if you want to get your darkest side out but never show anybody, at least you get it out.
Yes. And I think, I'm lucky that I write horror because I can kind of tap into those darker places of me, of people I know. And somebody asked me once, they asked me if there was a part of me in every character, and I said, yes, of course there is. And they said, even the villains? And I'm like, yes. I hate to say that, but especially the villains. It's that's the way to get it out. The anger and the distaste for the universe sometimes. If you channel it through a fictional character, then it doesn't affect your real life. You can be bubbly and smiling and teaching the foxtrot, and then be at home writing about a murderer who doesn't care that he killed his wife. And, you know,
And
you can
you
be more
remind me.
Yeah.
You remind me so much of another author that we had on the show. I think we've had her on twice. Her name's also Jen, and she's a theater sister actually, and
Oh.
she writes these horror movies. So she's in the theater and she's imagining all these characters, and you're kind of like, how does a theater sister come up with all these weird things? Like, just how?
Are you talking about Jen Turner? Are you talking about Jen Turner?
Yes.
Yes. So she's a cardiac nurse. And the last time we had her on, we need to connect you guys, because the last time we had her on, she was in I guess, wasn't she in the in the emergency room or working? And she's asking, so how does the drill work when you cut open the chest? And, she's like, I got to use this in my book. And, so we just chuckled and chuckled with her, and she's really awesome. Well, you'll have to get connected. I think you guys will be soul sisters.
I will. What's so funny is I'm writing this book now, my work in progress, and it's, it's sort of about a virus, but it's not really about a COVID type of virus. I don't want to go into too much detail because it's still very new, but I'm not a science person at all. I went to school for theater. But I have a friend who's a scientist. So I keep asking her, I'm like, can you be my research assistant? And she's like, yes, I love researching gross things.
And what a friend's for, right?
So I send her these texts. I'm like, is it possible for blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah to happen? And she'll just respond like, gross, hold on. And she comes back with like this great research, because I think I'm doing something that's so outlandish. And I'm like, I don't want scientists to read it and say, that would never happen. So it's good to have somebody who's like an immunologist and a scientist researching your weird ideas. And it's good for me to not actually have those on my Google history, because my Google history is disgusting because of being a horror writer. I'm always afraid cops will like raid my computer and just be like, okay, what's happening in your life that you have looked up? Can you cut a person's lungs open with a shard of a teacup? Like,
never a dull moment in your home, right?
No, I wish there were.
Oh my goodness. What is your dream book? What is something that you sort of aspire to and think, one day I'm going to write about that?
Oh, so a dream book for me to write. I've had, and it's not a horror idea, but I've had this idea in my head for a while to do like a literary fiction mystery, which was very character driven, but I don't want to solve the mystery at the end. And I feel like I would be breaking the cardinal rule of writing mysteries, is not finding out who done it at the end. So that's kind of my dream book, is to be able to do that and do it well enough that the mystery writing community would not put my head on a pike and carry it through the streets because of breaking the big rule.
Yeah, but you could just make it a sequel. That's how you go into the next one. So you start a new trend.
Exactly. I could do that.
Yes, you could. Listen, Dr. Seuss broke all the rules. Why can't you? So.
Hey, I like that.
No. I mean, most everything he said didn't make sense, but it's great to make kids laugh. And I mean, he's one of my favorites, absolute favorites, because he did break a lot of rules. So. And it was safe. I mean, it was all legal, right? So, I mean, and it was good. It stretches people's vocabulary, especially children, So, but yeah, I think you should do it. We vote you do it.
Okay.
Break all the rules. Break all the rules. So
hey, you heard it, everybody.
Yeah. Where can people find your books? And how can they connect with you?
The easiest place to find all my work is, it's always going to be Amazon.com, Jennifer Ann Gordon on Amazon.com. But if you would prefer to support a local bookstore close to you, or an indie bookstore anywhere, you can find my work on bookshop.org, which is a great website that will You can still order online, but your money will go through your local bookstore. It'll get shipped to you. It'll seem like Amazon, except you're helping out an indie bookstore. So bookshop.org is a great place to go to. You can also find me and my books and all of my social media links on my website, which is jenniferannegordon.com. And that's Anne with an E, like Anne of Green Gables. That's kind of the easiest place. It has all my links. I'm very active on Facebook and Instagram. I'm pretty active on Twitter, but mainly Facebook and Instagram. I also have a really cute dog, and he shows up on my Facebook and Instagram. So it's worth following me just for the dog. His name is Lord Tubby.
Just for the dog, right? Yes. Are you? Oh, that's so funny. Did you publish yourself?
I did. My first book, Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent.
Are you self-published?
Yeah, my first book was with a publisher, and then my second 2 books were self-published.
That is, and did you decide that on purpose?
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited about meeting you. And
thank you. But yes, I did decide. There's always been kind of like a tickle in the back of my mind that someday I might want to start a small publishing house. And since I didn't really know how to do that, I thought it would be best to learn and do that through making mistakes on myself first. But I also love the idea of being an indie author because I have complete creative control over my cover, how I market myself, my own branding. I don't have somebody else telling me what my brand is or what my cover is or what my title is, any of those things. So I'm a big fan of being a self-published author, as long as you take it seriously enough to still hire cover designers, professional editors, get a publicist, do it right, and put out great product.
Yeah, hire an editor, please.
Yes.
Absolutely. Jennifer, thank you so much for being a great guest. It was lovely getting to know a little bit more about.
Thank you so much.
A big pleasure. And to our
Do you
audience,
have any advice? I was just going to ask her, well, does she have any advice for young, starting out, horror writers? Do you have any advice for young? Yeah.
For young horror writers, I would say read as much in your genre and out of your genre as humanly possible. I think a lot of horror writers or a lot of genre writers in general only read their genre, whether that's romance, horror, sci-fi. And I think it gives you a limited understanding of what you can do with your work. So I would just say reading is the best tool to becoming a writer. And when you want to write, don't tell yourself you can't. Just write. You can't edit a blank page, but you can edit a page that has writing on it. Even if you think it's bad, it's not.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And thank you to our audience. Thank you for watching. Remember to write good stuff and to be inspired one conversation at a time. And if you want to know when we go live, please go ahead and like our Facebook page, and over on YouTube, please click the subscribe button and the notification bell. And we will see you again back next week. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.